They say the wealthy live in gilded cages, but sometimes those golden bars can transform into the darkest prisons. In this story, we witness a woman who had it all: money, prestige, and the promise of a fairy tale marriage, only to find herself abandoned and giving birth in a homeless shelter. This is a tale filled with betrayal, secret alliances, jaw-dropping legal maneuvers, and a final triumphant twist. You'll see how a single mother, once scorned and left to fight alone, turned the tables on the mistress who thought she had everything. Buckle up. You won't believe how one woman's determination rewrote her destiny. Amanda Reynolds was born into a world of soft lullabies, designer blankets, and hand-stitched baby clothes. Her parents, Margaret and Donald Reynolds, were prominent figures in Houston's real estate scene. From a young age, Amanda learned to navigate the corridors of wealth and power with the same grace she applied to the grand staircases of her parents' mansion. She was the kind of child who answered polite questions with a measured nod and a radiant smile, making even the sternest of relatives melt under her sweetness. Growing into adolescence, Amanda developed a sharp mind and an extraordinary sense of empathy, a combination that made her stand out in the elite circles. She attended St. Catherine's Academy, a private school known for its immaculate lawns and equally meticulous social grooming. There she excelled academically, winning debate competitions and championing charitable events that raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for local shelters. Despite the silver spoon, Amanda never lost her desire to help the less fortunate. This was a trait her parents both admired and worried about. They wanted their daughter to remain grounded, but not to the point of being taken advantage of. She met David Harrison at a charity gala hosted by her mother. David was the son of old oil money, a tall and charismatic figure with an easy laugh and a knack for captivating any room he entered. Amanda was drawn to his presence. Immediately he radiated confidence, but there was also an underlying sadness in his deep blue eyes. The night they met, they ended up talking for hours about everything from philanthropic strategies to the best Tex-Mex in Houston. Amanda was 22. David was 28, and sparks flew. Their courtship was swift and breathtaking. Over candlelit dinners at exclusive restaurants, David revealed his ambitions. He planned to expand his family's oil company into renewable energies. He spoke of wanting to create a legacy that would not only honor his ancestors, but also help the planet. Amanda was enthralled. In many ways, they seemed like a perfect match. Both came from families entrenched in wealth and influence, yet each harbored a genuine concern for society's most vulnerable. A year later, David proposed in front of a giant magnolia tree on the Reynolds estate. White petals rained down as he slipped a 5-carat diamond ring onto Amanda's finger. The wedding was held at the prestigious River Oaks Country Club, an event so lavish it made local headlines. Every detail sparkled with luxury, from the French champagne to the Swarovski crystal centerpieces. Guests included local celebrities, oil moguls, real estate tycoons, and even a cameo by attorney David Boies, who rumor had it was a close friend of David's father. It felt like the start of an unbreakable alliance. Once married, Amanda moved into David's sprawling mansion on the outskirts of Houston, a place she tried to infuse with warmth and soul. She set up donation drives, refurbished a section of the mansion into a home office for her charitable work, and began collaborating with philanthropic organizations to tackle homelessness in the city. David supported her at least in the beginning, signing hefty checks to fund her causes. For the first few months, everything felt like a dream. Early morning coffees in their bright breakfast nook, weekend getaways to the Harrison family ranch, and joint appearances at glittering social functions. But as the months rolled into years, Amanda started noticing small cracks in the facade. David became increasingly distant, spending long nights at the office or traveling without much explanation. Their once passionate conversations about changing the world devolved into hushed dinners spent checking emails. Rumors floated around that the Harrison Oil Corporation was facing difficulties in its pivot to renewable energy. Amanda tried to address it directly, but David brushed her off, claiming he was simply handling it. Over time, handling it became his go-to phrase for anything he didn't want to discuss. Amanda decided to put more effort into their marriage. She cancelled some charity events to spend evenings at home, carefully planned romantic dinners, and even organized a weekend retreat for them at a luxurious spa. Despite her efforts, David's demeanor didn't improve. He remained aloof and anxious, often snapping at small inconveniences. She chalked it up to stress after all corporate transitions were never easy. He was juggling family expectations, large sums of money, and public scrutiny. She wanted to stand by her husband, as any devoted wife would. Yet a soft, gnawing sensation in her gut told her something else was amiss. If only she'd known how right that instinct was. Months passed, and Amanda noticed David's absences grew longer. He stopped updating her about his travels, though headlines continued to appear. Harrison Oil Company expands to West Texas. David Harrison attends Renewable Energy Summit in San Francisco. Often, Amanda learned of his whereabouts by reading business news rather than hearing from him directly. Their interactions became tense, overshadowed by a sense of foreboding she couldn't articulate. She tried to brush it off. Maybe David was dealing with unscrupulous business partners. Maybe he was facing pushback from his family's traditional approach to oil. Yet late at night, when she lay awake in their enormous bed, Amanda felt the uneasy weight of a bigger betrayal. She kept seeing him slip away to answer clandestine phone calls. His phone now had a password, which he changed often. The David she had fallen in love with was slipping through her fingers. One night, Amanda received a tip from an unlikely source, her housekeeper, a gentlewoman named Rosa, who had been with the Harrison family for years. Rosa hesitated for days before speaking up, but her concern for Amanda overrode her loyalty to the hush-hush ways of the mansion. She confessed that she had seen David returning home very late, sometimes after midnight, smelling of a strong floral perfume that Amanda never wore. She also mentioned finding an unfamiliar pair of expensive stilettos hidden in the back of David's car when she was cleaning it. Shaken Amanda feigned calm, thanking Rosa for her honesty. Her hands trembled as she processed what this might mean. Infidelity was a whispered rumor in many elite marriages. She'd heard stories of affairs, cover-ups, hush money. She never thought she'd be one of those wives confronted with a stranger's perfume and clandestine shoes. Determined to find the truth, Amanda decided to follow David on one of his late-night excursions. When he claimed he had an urgent business dinner downtown, she discreetly tailed his black SUV in her own car. It led her to an upscale restaurant, the Goldfinch, known for its private VIP sections, frequented by Houston's elite. From a vantage point across the street, she saw David step out of his vehicle. A moment later, a tall, striking brunette in a red cocktail dress emerged from the passenger side. Amanda's heart pounded so violently she thought she might pass out. She couldn't see the woman's face clearly, but she saw them laugh, link arms, and walk into the dimly lit restaurant together. Amanda sat in her car for nearly 2 hours, waiting, her emotions swinging from numbness to seething anger to overwhelming sadness. Finally, David and the woman exited the restaurant, gazing into each other's eyes, oblivious to the world around them. They shared an intimate moment. David tipped the woman's chin with a practiced familiarity and sealed the evening with a passionate kiss. The sight of it lanced through Amanda's heart like a blade. She watched them drive away, presumably to some hotel or penthouse, while she remained frozen, tears burning her cheeks. That night, Amanda confronted David the moment he stepped into the mansion. She demanded answers, her voice choked by sobs. David, cornered, tried to deny it at first, claiming it was just a business associate. But Amanda had seen enough with her own eyes. She wouldn't back down. Finally, he confessed, insisting it was a momentary lapse, that this other woman meant nothing. He even had the audacity to blame Amanda for being too absorbed in her charity work and not taking care of his emotional needs. In a moment of fury, Amanda felt her world unravel. She stormed out of the living room and slammed the door to the guest bedroom. For hours, she wept. This was the man she had devoted her life to, the one she believed shared her dreams for a better world. To learn that he had been sneaking around with someone else felt like a violation beyond measure. In the following weeks, David oscillated between apologetic gestures, flowers, gifts, heartfelt notes, and sullen resentment. He claimed he'd ended the affair. He pleaded with Amanda not to shame him publicly, stating how crucial his reputation was for business negotiations. Still reeling, Amanda said nothing to her parents, unwilling to expose the cracks in her marriage just yet. But the worst was yet to come. Because the mistress her name, Amanda soon discovered, was Bianca Morrison, wouldn't remain a mere footnote in Amanda's life. She was about to flip Amanda's world upside down, launching an onslaught Amanda never expected. And soon, Amanda would find herself not in the safety of her mansion, but in a grim, overcrowded shelter, carrying David's baby inside her. Bianca Morrison was no ordinary mistress, the daughter of a once famous socialite who had lost her fortune. Bianca had grown up on the fringes of high society. She knew how to navigate exclusive parties, charm wealthy men, and project an air of refined sophistication. Yet beneath that veneer lurked a ruthless opportunist who would stop at nothing to secure her place in Houston's elite. When Amanda discovered Bianca's identity, she realized this woman was already well known among the city's rumor mill. Her name whispered at charity galas and private clubs. Some said Bianca was a gold digger. Others believed she was simply a woman with big ambitions and no moral qualms about how she achieved them. For Amanda, hearing those rumors confirmed her deepest fear. Bianca wouldn't be satisfied with a secret fling. She wanted more. Initially, Amanda tried to reason with David, urging him to cut all ties with Bianca. She insisted on attending couples therapy, which David begrudgingly agreed to. But even in therapy, David deflected responsibility, downplayed the affair, and claimed he was under immense business pressure. Meanwhile, he insisted Bianca was out of the picture. Amanda wanted to believe him for her sanity, for the marriage she still hoped to salvage. Then came the hateful phone calls. Late at night, the mansion's landline would ring. And when Amanda answered, a woman's voice, smooth and mocking, whispered threats. "Don't think you've won, sweetheart." Or sometimes just a sultry laugh before hanging up. One evening, the voice hissed, "He'll never be yours again." Amanda had no proof it was Bianca, but her instincts told her who was on the other end of the line. Terrified, Amanda told David about the calls. He shrugged them off as crank calls, refusing to entertain the idea that Bianca was still meddling. About a month later, Amanda's life took another unexpected turn. She found out she was pregnant. A swirl of emotions engulfed her: elation, fear, uncertainty. She remembered how David once talked excitedly about having children, raising them to be kind and socially conscious. Yet now, with the affair looming over them, she hesitated to tell him. But the pregnancy was a fact she couldn't hide forever. When she finally shared the news, David's reaction was lukewarm. He uttered a faint, "That's good news, I guess," then quickly returned to his phone. Amanda's heart sank. She kept her pregnancy quiet from the rest of the world. She couldn't bear the thought of the rumor mill dissecting her unborn child. She confided only in her closest friend, Natalie Peterson, who offered emotional support and a spare guest room if things got worse. Amanda declined the room, hoping that living under the same roof with David might still kindle some sense of commitment from him. Deep down, she believed that once the baby arrived, David would change. Bianca, however, had other plans. One morning, Amanda received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end didn't bother with anonymity this time. It was Bianca, her tone dripping venom. "So you're pregnant? Cute. Don't think that means you've won." Bianca sneered. "David's as good as mine." "You're just in my way." Amanda's blood ran cold. How had Bianca found out? She confronted David, demanding he set boundaries, but he seemed more exhausted than outraged. He refused to admit any ongoing contact with Bianca, but his phone was buzzing at odd hours, and he guarded it like a state secret. The mental strain took its toll on Amanda. She lost weight she couldn't afford to lose during her pregnancy. Her anxiety soared, and she felt alone in a marriage that was supposed to be a partnership. Then, while rummaging through some old tax documents in David's office, Amanda stumbled upon something that confirmed her worst suspicions, a receipt for a luxury watch purchased for nearly $20,000, addressed to Bianca Morrison. The date on the receipt was a week after David had supposedly ended the affair. Feeling her heart shatter all over again, Amanda confronted David. He exploded with anger, accusing her of snooping, evading her questions, offering no real explanation. That night, Amanda packed a small suitcase. She couldn't remain in a house where every corner echoed betrayal. David sneered. "Fine, if you're leaving, don't expect me to chase after you." So she left, her eyes filled with tears, not knowing where she would go or how she would live. She was disoriented, pregnant, and suddenly without a home she could trust. In a twist of tragic irony, the only place that offered immediate refuge was a women's shelter she had once funded through her charity work. And so Amanda Reynolds, heiress and philanthropist, found herself walking through the doors of a modest shelter in a run-down neighborhood, carrying all her worldly belongings in a single bag, and with a baby growing inside her. The Greenhaven Women's Shelter was tucked between a dilapidated convenience store and an abandoned auto repair shop on the city's outskirts. Despite the bleak surroundings, the interior bustled with activity. Children played in a corner, volunteers served warm meals, and social workers guided newcomers to cots or small rooms. Amanda never thought she'd be on the receiving end of these services. In her philanthropic past, she had visited shelters many times, but always with donations, cameras flashing, or as a guest speaker at uplifting events. Now she was here not as a benefactor, but as a resident. From the moment she stepped inside, the staff recognized her. They exchanged curious glances, and a few whispered her name. Amanda didn't want special treatment. She just needed a safe place to gather her thoughts. She asked the shelter's director, Gina Martinez, to please keep her presence under wraps. Gina had admired Amanda's charitable efforts for years and agreed immediately, ushering her into a small office for a private conversation. Amanda's emotions poured out in a rush. She told Gina everything: the affair, the threatening phone calls, David's dismissive attitude, and the pregnancy she tried so hard to protect. Gina listened intently, her warm brown eyes brimming with empathy. She offered Amanda a small private room, normally reserved for high-risk cases. The bed was simple, the furniture sparse, a wooden chair, a tiny dresser. But it was safe and quiet. Amanda exhaled a shaky sigh of relief, grateful for this sanctuary. The following days tested Amanda's resilience in ways she never imagined. She woke to the sound of crying infants and the hum of daily chores. Gone were the plush robes and marble floors. Instead, she navigated communal bathrooms, assisted with meals in the shelter kitchen, and listened to the stories of other women who'd fled abusive relationships or had fallen on hard times. Despite her own despair, Amanda found solace in solidarity. There was an unspoken sisterhood in the air, a shared determination to rebuild lives from the ashes. Amid the shelter's hustle, Amanda discovered a renewed sense of purpose. Many of the women had never had a champion. They offered Amanda emotional support, though they had far less than she did. In return, she helped them fill out job applications, coached them for interviews, and used her connections to secure resources. Word spread quickly that Amanda Reynolds was at Green Haven, and donations from some of her old socialite friends who didn't know the full story, but sensed something was wrong, began to trickle in. In the midst of this, Amanda found a beacon of hope in Dr. Evelyn Brooks, an obstetrician who volunteered part-time at the shelter. Dr. Brooks had once treated Amanda's mother at a luxury hospital, so their connection ran deeper than a standard doctor-patient relationship. She provided prenatal care, ensuring Amanda's baby was healthy. Amanda's stress levels were high, and she suffered from occasional dizzy spells, but Dr. Brooks assured her the baby was strong. Every time Amanda heard the quick pulse of the fetal heartbeat on the Doppler machine, tears of love and fear mingled on her cheeks. "Take it one day at a time," Dr. Brooks advised, "and don't feel guilty for needing this place. You've given so much. It's okay to accept help now." One morning, as Amanda helped serve breakfast in the shelter's cafeteria, she noticed a wave of murmurs ripple through the residents. Gina pulled her aside, looking tense. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "He won't leave." Alarmed, Amanda peered around the corner and saw David standing near the entrance, looking out of place in his tailored suit. The immediate impulse was to run and hide, but she steadied herself. She was done hiding. She walked up to him, head held high, ignoring the stares of curious onlookers. David's face was a mix of annoyance and worry. "Amanda, you can't stay here," he said, glancing around at the peeling paint and worn-out furniture. "Let's go home. We'll figure this out." Amanda crossed her arms. "Figure what out, David?" "That you're still seeing Bianca. That my pregnancy is just an afterthought for you. I'm not going anywhere until I feel safe." David frowned, lowering his voice. "Listen, we can handle this quietly. My father's attorneys—" "I'm not interested in your father's attorneys," Amanda interjected. "You want me back? Prove you've cut ties with Bianca. Make me feel like my life, my child, isn't some inconvenient detail." David looked at Amanda like she was speaking a foreign language. He mumbled something about finances, the press, and how staying at a shelter would tarnish the Harrison family name. Amanda stood firm. If he thought she would bow to pressure just to maintain appearances, he had misjudged her entirely. Eventually, David left his parting shot laced with frustration. "You'll regret this." Whether it was a threat or a desperate plea, Amanda couldn't tell. But she knew one thing. She wasn't turning back without a guarantee of safety for herself and for the baby she carried. Still, she had no idea the legal firestorm that was about to erupt, sparked by the very woman she had tried so hard to escape. The day after David's unexpected visit, Amanda woke to a flurry of activity in the shelter. Residents huddled around a battered television set in the common area, eyes glued to a morning news broadcast. When Amanda stepped closer, she realized the headline scrawled across the screen: High-profile divorce battle. David Harrison and Amanda Reynolds headed for court. Her heart sank. So it had come to this. She recognized one of the reporters standing outside the Harrison mansion, breathlessly speculating about infidelity, prenuptial agreements, and the possibility that Amanda Reynolds was seeking to expose secrets about the Harrison oil dynasty. The media had no official statements, only rumors. But rumors were enough to ignite a frenzy. Gina approached with a grim expression. They've been calling here non-stop reporters wanting quotes, confirmation, anything. Amanda felt the sting of betrayal all over again. She hadn't filed for divorce. She hadn't even seen a lawyer. Yet someone, likely David or Bianca, was feeding stories to the press. She retreated to her small room, head spinning, rummaging through her phone to see if David had tried to contact her again. Nothing. Only missed calls from unknown numbers, presumably reporters. Later that evening, a knock on her door revealed a petite woman with sharp eyes and impeccable posture. She introduced herself as Christine Walker, an attorney from a modest law firm that specialized in women's rights and domestic cases. Christine had heard whispers about Amanda's situation through mutual contacts in the philanthropic community. Sensing Amanda might be in over her head, she volunteered her services pro bono, at least to offer some preliminary advice. Amanda hesitated. She had grown wary of offers from strangers, especially lawyers who might want to exploit the scandal for fame. But Christine's earnest demeanor and credentials, she'd worked cases involving battered women, wrongfully evicted mothers, and class action lawsuits for underpaid female employees, won Amanda's trust. They sat on Amanda's narrow bed. Christine wasted no time. We need to talk about your assets, your prenuptial agreement, anything that can protect you and your child. Amanda nodded, explaining she'd signed a prenuptial agreement. However, it was primarily structured to protect the Reynolds family fortune, not the Harrison assets, since David's father insisted their side of the wealth stay separate. Amanda also revealed she had some personal savings and a trust fund from her parents. She hadn't wanted to tap into it yet, hoping to sort out the marriage on her own terms, but now it seemed inevitable. Christine flipped through pages of notes, her brow furrowed. The media storm is already brewing. If you plan to sue for divorce, we'll need a strong argument that you were forced out, left with no other option, especially given you're pregnant. Also, there's the issue of David's ongoing affair. At the mention of David's affair, Amanda's throat constricted with rage and hurt. I don't just want a divorce. I need to protect my baby. And if Bianca is part of his life, who knows what damage that could do? Christine's eyes sharpened. Bianca's role could be crucial. Depending on her involvement, harassment threats, or if she's controlling David's finances, we can build a case for significant damages. That's if you want to pursue it. Amanda didn't need time to think. She recalled Bianca's menacing phone calls and the cruelty with which she taunted her. This wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about safety, emotional well-being, and a child who deserved a stable future. Yes, Amanda whispered. I want to pursue it. Over the next few days, Christine returned with legal documents and strategies. She worked tirelessly consulting with other attorneys, and even floating the idea of calling in a big-name legal figure for added clout. At one point, she mentioned the possibility of reaching out to David Boys, the attorney who had briefly appeared at Amanda's wedding, though that remained a long shot. Nonetheless, it was clear Christine was assembling a formidable case. Meanwhile, rumors ballooned. Celebrity gossip channels discussed everything from Amanda's living conditions to David's alleged second mistress. Social media was abuzz with unfounded theories. Some said Amanda had run off with a secret lover of her own. Others speculated she was hiding a gambling addiction. None of it was true, but it hurt to watch her reputation become tabloid fodder. A silver lining emerged. Amanda received a call from her mother, Margaret Reynolds. Amanda had hidden her shelter stay for weeks, but the news coverage forced her hand. Over the phone, tears were shed on both ends. Margaret was furious with David, embarrassed by the media scandal, and most of all heartbroken for her daughter. She offered to have Amanda move back to the Reynolds estate. Amanda refused, at least for the moment. She wanted to see this battle through on her own terms, though she appreciated her family's unwavering support. They promised to stand by her side in court if needed. As the days ticked by, Amanda's pregnancy progressed. Dr. Brooks monitored her carefully. Despite the emotional chaos, the baby was healthy, strong. Each ultrasound felt like a beacon of love in a world overshadowed by conflict. But an even bigger curveball was on its way. Bianca, it turned out, had her own legal agenda. And her target wasn't just David. It was Amanda, too. Christine marched into the shelter's makeshift meeting room with an envelope in hand, her face drawn in frustration. Amanda, seated at a small round table with a cup of peppermint tea, felt her stomach churn. "You're not going to believe this," Christine said, dropping the envelope on the table. It contained a neatly printed legal document with ornate letterhead. The words defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress jumped out from the page. This was Bianca's countersuit, aimed directly at Amanda. Amanda's eyes widened. "She's suing me." "For what?" Christine sighed. "She claims you've spread damaging rumors about her harming her reputation and emotional well-being. She also alleges that your presence at certain social events led to harassment from your acquaintances, which she says left her traumatized." Amanda felt a wave of disbelief. "I haven't even spoken her name publicly. Everyone found out about the affair from the media. How can she possibly blame me?" Christine shrugged. "We both know her claims are weak, but that doesn't mean it won't cause you major stress and legal expenses. She's hired a powerful legal firm known for representing high-profile clients in scandal cases." Amanda's mind reeled. Bianca was turning the tables, not content to be the other woman. She was trying to paint herself as the victim. The move was shrewd. She probably hoped Amanda would buckle under the pressure of fighting two legal battles at once. And there was no doubt Bianca was being funded by David or the Harrison family. They had the resources and the motive to bury Amanda under lawsuits. That afternoon, Amanda sat in her tiny shelter room, tears hot on her cheeks. She was pregnant, homeless, and now facing not just a divorce, but a defamation suit from the very woman who'd tormented her. In her darkest hours, she questioned everything: her choice to marry David, her decision to walk out, her refusal to just let David's indiscretions remain hush-hush for the sake of social standing. Yet every time she felt the baby move, she recalled why she had taken a stand, love and safety for this child and for herself. Christine's strategy was two-pronged. She filed for a restraining order against Bianca, citing the threatening phone calls and emotional harassment. She also prepared a robust defense for the defamation case, gathering evidence of Bianca's calls, texts, and any witness testimony that painted the real picture of Bianca's intentions. Amanda provided screenshots of unknown numbers, times of calls, and recollections of specific threats. Rosa, the loyal housekeeper, agreed to testify about the suspicious perfume, the late-night visits, and Bianca's presence in the mansion. In parallel, the divorce proceedings took shape. Christine insisted that Amanda seek full custody of the unborn child, citing David's reckless behavior and failure to provide a safe environment. The more David stonewalled, the stronger Christine pushed. Financial records were subpoenaed, and hints of questionable business dealings emerged. It was possible David had siphoned funds into offshore accounts to finance lavish gifts for Bianca. The tension escalated when Bianca decided to flaunt her relationship with David. She posted pictures on social media, romantic dinners, exotic vacations, tagging him in each snapshot. The captions were vague enough to avoid naming Amanda. But the implication was clear. I'm with David, and we're living our best life. It was a deliberate taunt, a psychological tactic to unnerve Amanda. Yet in this chaos, Amanda found pockets of fortitude. The women at the shelter rallied around her, offering emotional support and practical help. They stuffed envelopes, sorted documents, and even accompanied her to court hearings for moral backing. Her father, Donald Reynolds, quietly hired private investigators to gather more evidence against David, focusing on financial misconduct that could bolster Amanda's case. Her mother, Margaret, reached out to philanthropic contacts, ensuring the shelter received additional funds in case the lawsuit tried to paint it in a negative light. The pivotal moment came when the judge scheduled a preliminary hearing to address custody matters and restraining orders. Christine prepared Amanda meticulously, coaching her on how to present herself calmly and truthfully. On the day of the hearing, Amanda walked into the courthouse wearing a simple black dress, her pregnant belly noticeable. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. She felt her chest tighten, but she forced herself to remain composed. Beside her stood Christine, a pillar of strength. Across the aisle, David looked haggard, his tie slightly askew. Bianca sat next to him, impeccably dressed, her lipstick a shade of crimson that might have been called victory red. Amanda's heart hammered as the judge entered. She whispered a silent prayer, not just for legal favor, but for the courage to see this battle through. Though the hearing was merely a first step, Amanda felt the stakes were astronomical. She wasn't just defending her reputation. She was fighting for her future, her baby's well-being, and the chance to reclaim her life from the clutches of betrayal and greed. The courtroom was hushed, every cough and whispered exchange amplified by the tension. Seated at the plaintiff's table with Christine, Amanda stared straight ahead, trying to keep her breathing steady. She could almost feel Bianca's cold gaze from across the aisle. Judge Patricia Hammond, a seasoned jurist known for her no-nonsense approach, presided over the case. She scanned the file, raised her eyes to the attorneys, and delivered a pointed gaze. I understand we have multiple issues: a divorce, a defamation countersuit, and a restraining order request. Let's address them one at a time. Christine stood first, systematically, laying out Amanda's reasons for seeking the restraining order against Bianca. She presented phone records, testimonies from Rosa, and screenshots of threatening messages. Bianca's lawyer, a slick man named Franklin Mills, countered with claims that there was no proof the voice on the line was Bianca's, and that the so-called threats were merely hearsay. But Christine struck back by pointing out the specific mention of Amanda's pregnancy information that was not public at the time of the calls. Bianca alone would have known. When Bianca took the stand, she put on a theatrical performance. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue, lamenting how her reputation was destroyed by Amanda's supposed accusations. In a softly quivering voice, she painted herself as a naive woman who fell in love, not realizing the depths of the marital issues between David and Amanda. She implied that David had told her he was separated, that the marriage was merely a formality. The more she spoke, the more the tension in the courtroom rose. Amanda's stomach tightened. She recognized this manipulation for what it was, a well-rehearsed lie. Things took a dramatic turn when Christine called an unexpected witness, a private investigator hired by Donald Reynolds. Standing in a crisp suit, he testified that he had followed Bianca for several weeks. She had been recorded entering David's office at odd hours, accepting deliveries of expensive jewelry. But the bombshell came when the investigator uncovered emails between Bianca and a Harrison Oil accountant describing transactions that hinted at embezzlement. Funds meant for corporate accounts had been funneled to Bianca's personal account, labeled as consultancy fees. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. David's attorney, a partner from a prestigious law firm, tried to object, claiming irrelevance. But Christine argued it directly related to the defamation countersuit. If Bianca was financially benefiting from David, her claim of emotional distress due to Amanda's rumors held less merit. The judge allowed the evidence. Bianca's composure cracked. Her tears dried up as she shot David a furious look. David took the stand next. His face had a pallor to it, and beads of sweat glistened on his forehead. He tried to maintain an air of control, but Christine's cross-examination was relentless. She asked him about the prenuptial agreement, his clandestine gifts to Bianca, and the phone calls. Each question cornered David further. He admitted he had been weak and confused, but insisted he loved Amanda. His statements rang hollow. The final blow came when Christine presented a recorded conversation. It was from a wiretap authorized by a judge after Amanda had filed harassment complaints. The audio revealed David and Bianca discussing strategies to force Amanda out of the marriage without a substantial settlement. They mentioned tying her up in legal battles, hoping she'd run out of money or the will to fight. The transcript also implicated David in forging certain financial statements to protect Harrison Oil from scrutiny. A wave of shock pulsed through the courtroom. Bianca's face turned ashen. David closed his eyes briefly, looking like a man whose world had just imploded. The judge's expression was stern. "I see. This evidence is highly concerning. We will certainly address it further as this case proceeds." By the time the session ended, Amanda had secured a temporary restraining order against Bianca. The judge also ruled that David should provide immediate financial support for Amanda's medical expenses and living costs, given she was carrying his child. As for the defamation countersuit, Judge Hammond indicated it looked weak in the face of new evidence, but she deferred a final decision pending a full trial. Outside the courthouse, the media cameras nearly blinded Amanda. Christine ushered her through the throng of reporters, no statement given. But Amanda couldn't help feeling a surge of triumphant relief. For months, she had been the one under siege, scorned and dismissed. Now she had turned the tables. Perhaps the tide was finally turning in her favor. The weeks leading to the final trial were a roller coaster. On one hand, David's legal team scrambled to discredit the wiretap and the private investigator's findings. On the other, Christine built a powerhouse case, enlisting forensic accountants to dig deeper into Harrison Oil's ledgers. Evidence piled up, showing that David and Bianca had systematically hidden money, presumably to weaken Amanda's position during the divorce. Public sympathy swayed in Amanda's favor. Stories began circulating about how she, a pregnant philanthropist, had been reduced to living in a shelter due to her husband's betrayal. Bianca tried to spin her narrative, granting an exclusive interview to a local celebrity gossip magazine. But the interview backfired when she contradicted her earlier claims. In one paragraph, she stated David misled her into believing he was separated. In another, she bragged about being wined and dined at posh restaurants with him for over a year. The public saw through the lies, and social media turned viciously against her. She deleted her accounts, unable to handle the backlash. On the morning of the trial, Amanda donned a simple navy blue maternity dress. She was nearly 7 months pregnant, her belly a testament to the child she carried. She walked into the courtroom, flanked by Christine and her parents. Outside, protesters and supporters mingled some brandished signs that read, "Justice for Amanda," while others claimed she was a gold digger. Amanda ignored them. She was here for one purpose: to protect her future. The trial began with opening statements. Christine portrayed Amanda as the wronged party. A pregnant wife cast aside, threatened and harassed, while her husband plotted behind her back. David's lawyer tried to depict Amanda as an opportunist who was weaponizing the pregnancy to secure financial gain. However, the mountain of evidence told a different story. Forensic accountants presented shocking details. David had covertly transferred over $2 million to Bianca's accounts within 6 months. Bianca's lawyer tried to claim it was for professional consulting services, but the accountants found no records of any legitimate work. Instead, receipts showed extravagant gifts, bags, jewelry, a condo near downtown. The revelations not only shattered David's credibility, but also opened the door to potential criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement. Then came Bianca's turn to testify. Her once poised demeanor crumbled under Christine's cross-examination. Confronted with her own recorded phone calls and conflicting statements, she resorted to tearful outbursts and wild accusations. She alleged that Amanda's powerful family had set her up, but no evidence supported that claim. The judge's patience wore thin as Bianca repeatedly dodged questions, incurring multiple reprimands. When Amanda took the stand, she spoke calmly and truthfully, recounting her emotional anguish, the threatening calls, and the realization that her husband was conspiring with his mistress. She expressed regret that it had come to this, stressing how she tried to save her marriage. Her voice caught when she described living in the shelter pregnant and scared for the future. She didn't embellish or dramatize. She simply told the truth. In the final days of testimony, David himself took the stand again. This time, he appeared sullen and resigned. Under Christine's questioning, he admitted to orchestrating the financial scheme with Bianca. He claimed Bianca coerced him, but his attempts to shift blame fell flat. The jury watched him with a mix of disbelief and disapproval. It was evident he was out of viable excuses. Closing arguments came in a whirlwind. Christine delivered a passionate plea for justice, urging the jury to see through David and Bianca's manipulations. David's lawyer tried to salvage the situation, painting David as a man who made poor choices under stress. But the damage was irreparable. The judge dismissed Bianca's defamation countersuit, entirely citing lack of evidence and possible malicious intent. The jury deliberated on the divorce settlement and custody arrangement for less than a day before returning with a decision. Amanda and Christine sat side by side, hearts pounding as the judge read the verdict. David was found liable for significant punitive damages. He'd have to pay a substantial sum to Amanda, enough to ensure her child's future security. The judge granted Amanda sole custody with visitation rights for David, contingent upon court-approved counseling, and an apology to Amanda in writing. Bianca was left with nothing but the possibility of facing criminal charges for her involvement in the embezzlement scheme. Amanda closed her eyes, tears forming. She had won. She had protected her unborn child from a life overshadowed by scandal and manipulation. She felt an overwhelming sense of relief and gratitude, not just to Christine and her parents, but to everyone who had believed her. In that moment, she finally felt free. The day after the final verdict, Amanda stood on the wide granite steps of the courthouse, the morning sun brushing against her cheeks like a blessing. Her hand instinctively rested on her belly, feeling the baby's fluttering movements, soft yet insistent, like a tiny heartbeat of hope. Emotions churned in her chest, a tidal wave of relief sorrow, and a flicker of something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. Christine, now more friend than attorney, stepped up beside her and placed a steadying hand on Amanda's shoulder. "You did it," she said softly. "You stood tall through every storm. And now, finally, the clouds have cleared." Amanda turned her eyes, brimming with grateful tears. "I couldn't have done this without you, without any of you, Christine, Dr. Brooks, Gina, even the women at the shelter. I owe so much." Christine gave a rare smile. "Then pay it forward." They shared a quiet laugh, the weight of the past months lifting like fog from a valley. Reporters clustered just beyond the courthouse gates, their cameras trained on her every move. Microphones jutted into the air, eager for a soundbite. Amanda cleared her throat, then stepped forward to deliver a prepared statement. "I'm grateful for the justice served today," she began, her voice calm, resolute. "This has been a deeply personal journey. My focus now is my child's well-being and creating a future built on integrity and truth. I appreciate the public's support, and I ask for privacy as we take our next steps forward." She turned, walking with quiet dignity, to a waiting car. As the driver pulled away, Amanda allowed herself a long breath. She had walked into that courtroom as a betrayed wife, and emerged as a woman reborn. Though Amanda now had the financial resources to stay anywhere in Houston, her heart pulled her back to the place that had taken her in when she was at her most broken. Green Haven Shelter had not only offered her a bed, but had restored her humanity. When she stepped through the front doors once more, the response was immediate. Applause erupted, unplanned but heartfelt. Women who had once stood beside her in food lines and comforted her during sleepless nights now encircled her with pride. Gina Martinez, the shelter's director, guided her into her old room, now filled with flowers, baby gifts, and handwritten notes. Gina embraced her tightly. "We always knew you were going to rise. But the way you did it, Amanda, you're going to be a legend in this place." Amanda laughed through her tears. "I was just trying to survive." "You did more than survive," Gina said. "You fought back with grace, and you inspired every woman here to believe they can too." Amanda sat with Gina for one final heart-to-heart in the small office. The fluorescent light flickered above them, but the warmth between them filled the space. "I want to give back," Amanda said firmly. "Not just donations. I want to establish a program, a real one. Legal aid, prenatal care, housing assistance, all through Green Haven. We'll call it the Reynolds Initiative." Gina's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious," Amanda replied. "Too many women fall through the cracks. I want to be the net that catches them." 2 weeks later, Amanda moved into a quiet townhouse on the edge of Memorial Park. It was owned by a long-time family friend who offered it rent-free. Amanda accepted, not because she couldn't afford otherwise, but because the gesture felt like healing, like people wanted to lift her up, not tear her down. She filled the rooms slowly. A white crib nestled in the corner of her bedroom. Bookshelves lined with children's classics, soft lighting pastel curtains, all a cocoon of love for the baby who had carried her through her darkest hours. Her mother, Margaret, brought over antique furniture from Amanda's childhood room. Her father, Donald, painted the nursery walls himself, refusing to let anyone else touch them. And Natalie flew down from New York, bringing laughter snacks and memories of simpler times. "Remember when we used to think prom drama was the worst thing in the world?" Natalie teased one evening, helping assemble a stroller. Amanda chuckled. "Compared to court battles and defamation suits. Yeah, prom was a breeze." But underneath the jokes was something real, a sisterhood reborn, a life rediscovered. News of David and Bianca faded from the headlines. David's assets were being audited, and whispers of pending charges circulated among Houston's business elite. Harrison Oil publicly distanced itself from him, initiating internal reforms and PR campaigns to salvage their reputation. Bianca, once the darling of red carpets and whispered rumors, vanished from public view. Her social media accounts disappeared overnight, and she was rumored to have left the country. Amanda paid them no mind. She had more important matters ahead. On a cool September morning, Amanda went into labor. The drive to the hospital was a blur, contractions, deep breathing, Christine and Gina arriving within minutes to offer support. Dr. Brooks was already there, waiting in a crisp lab coat and sneakers. "You've got this," she whispered, squeezing Amanda's hand. Hours later, Amanda held her son for the first time. A perfectly formed bundle with dark eyes that blinked curiously up at her, and a grip that latched around her finger like he never wanted to let go. She named him Emmanuel, God with us, a name that embodied survival, grace, and rebirth. Those early weeks of motherhood were both beautiful and brutal. Sleepless nights blurred into sunlit mornings. Feedings, diaper changes, and lullabies took center stage. Yet with every midnight cry and every soft coo, Amanda felt herself bloom. She wasn't just a mother. She was a protector, a builder, a woman remade. Her story caught fire quietly. Friends from her old life reached out not with pity, but with respect. One day, Amanda received a call from a non-profit that specialized in women's rights and domestic abuse prevention. They wanted her to be their keynote speaker at a major gala. Amanda stood by the window, Emmanuel nestled against her shoulder, and listened as the offer was explained. Share her story, inspire others, help drive legislative reform. "Yes," she said at last, tears pricking her eyes. "I'll do it." In the months that followed, Amanda balanced motherhood with purpose. She spoke at events. She launched the Reynolds Initiative. She returned to Green Haven often now as a partner. Her story, once scandal fodder, became a beacon for women who'd lost everything and needed proof that survival was possible. And through it all, Amanda never forgot the darkest night she spent curled up on a cot pregnant, and unsure if anyone would ever believe her again. Now, as Emmanuel giggled in her arms and the sun poured through her townhouse windows, she knew the answer. She had believed in herself. In this extraordinary saga of heartbreak, resilience, and ultimate triumph, Amanda Reynolds proves that true strength often lies just beneath life's darkest moments. From a mansion to a humble shelter, she discovered her most potent treasure was not her family's fortune but her unbreakable spirit. In the end, her stand against betrayal empowered not just herself but countless other women who've faced similar battles. If Amanda's journey resonated with you, if it made you think about the power of hope, the value of justice, or the sheer courage it takes to protect one's dreams, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more stories that uplift and inspire. Let's spread Amanda's message far and wide, that no matter how dire the situation may seem, there's always a path forward when we stand up for ourselves and for those we love.